time, the kind, benevolent ruler decided that he had had enough of the evil being around. And he's like nothing can exist in my kingdom that is not love. And so slowly all of the evil got like coagulated into a big giant blob as it was making its way out of the kingdom by the power of the Kree. But then some little jackass kid saw the big blob of evil and was like, I'll love you. And so all of that evil was going to go into the child. And everybody thought that would be a terrible idea to have it all concentrated into one kid. So they decided that they'd all love it a little.
That's the
In that sense, that's where I see this little corner coming to meet this moment.
Oh, that's a very. I hadn't thought about that.
Because
So you, just let me show you. Sorry for interrupting. I just want to get it. Instead of the we being, it's like no, this little corner is a nexus point of many different Christian groups and non-Christian groups, and then nexus point is perhaps the place we should look for as the thing that will rise to the response. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
That's really good, Paul.
And that's what I hear when you say, this is how this little corner should steal the culture.
Howdy, Embody. Afriel here. We hope you're feeling virtually not alone this evening. Today I got a doubleheader for us. We're going to talk about how Santa isn't real, and then we're going to talk about the value of below threshold efforts, because we have to get the other half of the King Soul, and then once we get that, we're going to go and grab the Void Heart from down below in the Abyss. So, get the outline back up. Get the sound turned back on. And then we'll get going. I think I'll turn the music back up for this too. Da-da-da. Alright. So what do I mean by Santa isn't real? Also, let's go ahead and get our travel charms back on so I can actually see where I'm going. Too far? No, not far enough. He's on the other side. Okay. So what I mean by Santa not being real is that there are noble lies being told by those who rule over us that other people don't seem to be picking up on. And not so much the specific noble lies themselves, but more generally the fact that noble lies exist, and the fact that that's something that they should maybe be taking into consideration when evaluating what other people are saying to them. Yeah, we'll do thorns. And by the way, I'm included in that too. There's things that I now see as noble lies that I didn't pick up on for a long time. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about that because it turns out people get really offended when you tell them that Santa isn't real. So we're just going to leave that one alone. And in theory, howdy Parlato. In theory, the meta story of Santa not being real would help people figure out that that's something that they should be watchful for, that there might be things that they are being lied to about. But it seems to have the opposite effect from what I've seen. And I'll give kind of an example. Howdy, Mills. I'll give kind of an example there before I keep going. One that I don't think is terribly controversial at this point. So we were having our Olympia estuary Tuesday or two ago. And one of the things that came up was one of the guys who comes pretty regularly has a coworker who has been working from home for quite some time, and they don't want to come back into the office because, quote, we're in year 5 of a pandemic and there are people who still refuse to wear masks. This is ridiculous and unsafe. And nobody bothered to tell her that Santa isn't real. And at this point, I don't even think that if you were to have the people who insisted emphatically, howdy Riz, that no, Santa is real, Santa's 100% real, and anybody who tells you otherwise is a liar who doesn't care about you and just wants to see you and everybody around you die. Even if that person came up to them in person and said, hey, Santa isn't real. I was lying the whole time. I'm sorry I lied to you, but we need to move on and continue living life again. I'm pretty sure that the way that person would respond is, no, Santa is real. You're just being forced to say that Santa isn't real by the anti-Santa brigade. And I don't know what you do at that point. I don't want to deem somebody unsalvageable. You would describe that group less about the truthfulness of Santa, but about therapeutics because of Christmas trauma. Yes. Yes, you would. But I don't know how if you can reach somebody like that, if it's even possible. So in theory, the lesson that you should be taking from the sort of meta story of Santa, or pro wrestling for that matter, because Santa's not the only instance, it's just one that I think works well medically. The lesson you're supposed to take, in my opinion, is that sometimes the adults will lie to you, and ostensibly it's because they have your best interests at heart. In Santa's case, your parents love you and they want the best for you, and they want to add a little magic to giving presents to you because they love you and they care about you. And then when you find out that Santa isn't real, you're supposed to kind of understand that meta-narrative and then help propagate it to your younger siblings and then your children when you eventually have them. But I don't think that's what people actually learn from the Santa meta-narrative lesson. Oh my goodness. Do you need to go outside? If I put you outside, are you going to run around to the front door and make the neighbors concerned about us? So you're just going to bark at me and insist that I pet you for a minute? Dogs, everybody. Need to pet the dog branding. That's what we need right now. But yeah, so the things that I think people are actually taking away from that lesson are, if there's something that the people in charge are lying about, if it really matters, they'll make sure to tell you. They'll make sure to say, hey, I know, just for an instance, with my younger brother, when he was growing up, he got down a really weird logical rabbit hole where he was trying to figure out what Santa was and how that all worked. And my parents had to step in when he was like, I'm pretty sure Santa is God. And so if it really matters, if you're really going down the wrong trail, the people in charge, they'll make sure to tell you that, hey, we were just joshing you. We're just pulling your chain. But will they? Will they actually tell you if they're lying? If if their well-being, if their benefits are threatened by the lies that they're telling you. And then the other thing that I think they learn is that they only lie about silly, inconsequential things, right? Like they'll lie about Santa not being real, but there's no way they would actually lie about something that was actually impactful. But wouldn't they? Like if they truly believed it was for your benefit, or if they somehow managed to justify it that way to themselves, then what would stop them from lying about literally anything? And I don't know how you remedy that. That's the thing that I've struggled with for a long time and continue to struggle with, is that there seems to be that issue at hand, right? And if you have people who are convinced that Santa is real, like I don't know how you get people to understand that meta story to be properly distrustful of authority. And the only way that I've seen people be able to wake up from those sorts of things is undergoing some sort of really horrible trauma where they've had to be lied to by somebody that they care about something that really matters to them, and then by going through that realize that, oh, I should be way more skeptical of things that people in authority tell me, and even then they're not necessarily going to catch all of the lies. They're not going to always be skeptical of all the things that they need to be. Focus up for a second. And I'd like to find a better way. I'd like to find a way that people can learn that from a story and not from getting burned. But I don't see another way, and that's kind of upsetting to me. It's the Traitor Lord! Ow. He does a lot of damage. I can't get the down hit off as well. Okay, well. There's death number 1 for those who are counting at home. But yeah. I would love for people to be able to learn that lesson, to be properly distrustful of authority without having to actually have to undergo the trauma associated with being betrayed by somebody. And yet I'm hopeful that when I open it up that somebody will have an answer, but we'll see. I'm not hopeful on that front. And I think I'm gonna hold off on the next section until after I beat the Traitor Lord. I should be able to get it on the next one if I don't continue to whack my face into spikes. Thankfully, this isn't quite as Meat Boy as the last episode, so we're a little bit better off on that front. And my thumbs seem to be working. Tuskegee syphilis experiments? What are you talking about, Grizz? There's no way that the government would give sexually transmitted disease to black men and see what, or actually no, it was that they already had syphilis and they told them they were giving penicillin and they weren't, and they were seeing... They're basically using it as a way of doing a double-blind study to see if penicillin worked, I think was how that worked. Is he in this room? Hear it. It's over this way. Somebody will have to fact-check me on that one. But there's no way the government would do something that absurd, that twisted, that inhumane. If there was something that was going to be helpful to people, they would, of course, they would give it to them. Without hesitation. Alright. Second try.
parry's off today. Ow. Also some good dashes. Ow. That's annoying. I got a heal? Get one heal. And a die. Number 2! No, not... Bukele wouldn't be a good WEF Supreme Leader. He would be a good ARC Supreme Leader. You gotta have competing WEFs so that way you can have the population be mooking for one of the two knights rather than trying to become knights themselves. Or realizing that the whole paradigm is messed up and that mooking or knighting is maybe not the only two options that exist, and maybe there's a different game that you could be playing, and that we should be trying to either figure out what that game is or realize that Christianity probably has something approximating that, and we should be trying to figure that out and cultivate it. Especially, like, within the framework of, like, how do you fit that game into modern society and modern contexts. Because it's not that you can just, like, take something and then assume that it's going to be perfectly functional. Gosh darn it. I personally mook a knight. I mean, I'm not gonna stop you. It's just the pattern that most people engage in, but it's like, we don't need to do that. We don't need to be mooks or insist that knighthood is the only way to escape mookhood. Gosh darn it. Just not getting spacing correct. I could have dashed that. Alright. Traitor Lord. I dashed with him instead of against him. Dashed into him because I didn't have the spacing right, and then I dashed into an attack. I dashed into him. Okay, we're good. No. I forgot that was one of his attacks. Number 3. Lucky number 3. Alright. I don't know. I'm hopeful that the memetics of the idea, like believing in Santa, is something that is at least somewhat helpful in trying to reframe that discussion. Where it's like, hey, there's this thing that you're believing in that is patently ridiculous, and everybody else is seeing that it's patently ridiculous. And there's still going to be people who will insist that no, you're just making a false equivalency and saying that this is a belief in Santa when really you're just being delusional about what's really real. But hopefully it'll be enough of an earworm to get people... It's the second time I did that. To get people to realize that they could be being lied to, even if they don't want to believe that the particular instance that somebody claims, hey, Santa isn't real, in regards to... with the little white ball that's currently dark. If you're talking to one that's just like to the bottom left of my mask, that is Soul Overflow. So instead of having 3 charges, I can have 4. Howdy Spatch. Santa isn't real. Next, you're gonna tell me Griswold Grimm isn't real? Well, I've seen him in person, but that doesn't mean that... Let's just say that Griswold Grimm is a character that he plays on TV, and maybe not his actual legal fiction. Not his birth name. which might come as a shock to some of you. Ah. Deep breaths. Honestly, I wasn't even thinking about the Peugeot Santa is real thing. Although that works well, so I'm going to say that that was my intention from the beginning. Howdy, Ron. Folk overweight the legal fiction so hard. I mean, I'm not overweighting it, I'm just... There's a level at which I'm more real Pilotson than my legal fiction. The legal fiction is more of a mask than it is an actual person or persona. Cool. It's good to know. Oh, I could have dodged that. I could have dodged that. Let's see if I can get some space. Can I get a heal? Can I get another heal? Interesting that his spacing comes just shy of me. Oh, he doesn't usually run forward like that. Or she, I guess. Can do this. Ah, that was dumb. Howdy, Cece. Goodness. Ron had a thing? What thing did Ron have? Actually, you know what? Screw it. I'm gonna hop in Discord if anybody wants to join me and watch me die for a little bit, and then live peanut gallery for the second half of the monologue. If I can find where to click. Hop in, stream it. Bada bing, bada boom. And back to OBS. Back to Hollow Knight. What's the topic and how is my dying? The first topic was how Santa isn't real and how there's people who put too much trust and faith in the government, and how my understanding of the story of Santa is supposed to be kind of an introductory thing for most children of, hey, you should have an appropriate level of distrust for the adults who wants what's best for you, but that's not the lesson that people tend to take away from it. That they tend to internalize that, oh, people wouldn't lie, or they wouldn't lie about important things, or they would tell me if it was important. Howdy, Ron. And Grizz, not just about people who still believe that we're in a pandemic, but other things as well. Other more significant or severe things, but things that I feel like that one's pretty uncontroversial at this point, so I'm just gonna leave it at that one. I'm glad it went great, Ron. You're muted if you are on. And howdy, Mo. Big Mo. Good to see you in the audience.
Oh, okay, there we go.
There we go.
Oh, good evening, sir.
How are you? Are you feeling virtually not alone?
Actually, very, very virtually not alone.
Mm-hmm.
I got to heckle Cece earlier today.
Ooh, where was she on?
That was fun. She was doing a Bob Ross thing
Okay.
earlier, and she was doing her painting. It was pretty cool.
I didn't get a
And-
notification for that. I'll have to go look for it.
Yeah, it was a live stream. I want to officially. Well, she said it on the air, so I bet her. Now she didn't take me up on this bet, so I'm putting it on her. I bet her that she passed her test. So it was one Mexican meal, my choosing, because I think she won.
Okay.
I'm a mercenary that way.
That's a good mercenary to be.
It's altruistic hedonism. So, what is the topic du jour, and how are you doing?
The topic for the first half, at least, is how Santa isn't real, and how I feel like there's like a meta-narrative story there that is getting missed by a lot of people, and I don't know how you get people to see that people who claim to care about you can lie to you without having them experience that through some sort of trauma. Oh, that's dumb. Oh, come on.
I love
Okay.
that. Yeah. I mean, I feel so bad because I really don't feel like rooting for you to die just yet, but you do die well.
Well, that's good because I just died again.
Oh, okay. I'm driving, so I can't see you die. So but it sounded splendid.
I just.
So getting.
yeah.
Oh, good.
No, go ahead.
Well, no. So here's the deal. Would that bleed over if you wake up one morning and mom and dad finally tell you there's no Santa? Then my thoughts go dark and go, well, then why bother with Jesus?
Well, do you think that Jesus
So-
is a myth in the same way that Santa is?
I think it starts off that way.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It kind of does, but I want you to elaborate more.
Help me out.
Well, like,
I appreciate.
because I'm trying to figure out what you mean by it. After you're adopted.
Well, here's.
But sorry, go ahead.
No, well, here's the deal. Like, Santa, I guess, does come from some sort of historical figure he was a good guy. And I think, a Christian background. So in some way, there was a Santa, and there's maybe a spirit of Santa.
Okay.
And I know people personally who's told their kids early on there is no Santa, but there is a Jesus. So they swapped out. They supersized it.
I see what you're getting at now. Okay. We weren't lying about this thing, but we were lying about this thing, but
Yeah.
we weren't lying about this. And the question then becomes, well, how do I know that
Yeah.
you're not lying about Jesus too? That's okay. Is that what you're getting at?
Yes, exactly. That's it. Which is kind of. I could see that being a problem.
Yeah. Well, and it becomes a problem too of like once you open that door of like, oh well, there are things about which you shouldn't trust authority. It's like, well, then what can I trust authority about? But I think that it's more dangerous to be blindly trusting, both for the person who is trusting and for the authority itself, although the authority doesn't often recognize it until it's too late.
Well, when you say blind trust, because I hear the term blind faith, and with Jesus, it's not so much blind because there's scripture. I mean, this took me a while to hear and learn, so it's not so much blind faith. So, and it comes down to I realize I think governments and people will always fail. And it's not to say that they're bad, it's just that they're flawed.
Mhm.
And so you're going to have sort of, I guess you, hey, one second, I'm talking to myself right here. Blind faith reminds me of Kim Jong-il or whatever in North Korea. Like you have faith in them, you believe what they say, or you die.
Well, I don't
Whereas-
actually think that they
What-
do have faith
Yeah.
in him, oddly. I think that everybody there, like
Okay.
the people who are in power, in charge, are well aware of the fact that it's all nonsense, but they also know that they have to go along with it in order to continue to get by. Like, it's much more pro wrestling, at least at like the higher echelons. There are probably people who genuinely do believe it, but I think that like the devotional belief that you're talking about is less common. Well, I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe I'm uneducated.
Well, I'll give that to you. I think it reminds me of like a sci-fi movie. Oh, A Boy and His Dog, or Logan's Run. You know, like there's certain lies that you have to take completely, because they're imposed on you by society, and that's just what you were raised with. And once you learn that it's a lie, or usually you get killed.
Well, if you learn it's a lie and you don't also learn that you're not supposed to say that it's a lie. At least in certain companies.
Right.
I mean,
Oh yeah.
well, you
Right,
had the
right,
whole
right.
thing in Russia where, like, there's no truth in Pravda or something like that was one of the sayings that they had.
Okay.
But it was one of those things that, like, yeah, we know the government's lying through their teeth to us, but we also know that we can't say that they are.
Right. Right. I guess I was getting hung up on blind faith, because you're getting.
Well, I say blind faith in particular because of the we're still in a pandemic sort of mindset that some people seem to have.
Oh.
And so,
Go
like,
on,
they're...
express-
Sorry, go ahead.
No, okay, that's kind of scary. That to me, and I'm not trying to be mean, but it's the people who still wear masks.
Yep,
Okay, that's damage.
it is.
They're damaged.
Yes.
So I don't. Okay, that's fear. Okay, I mean I can analyze it, but what's the motivation for your topic today? I might be missing it.
Some personal stuff that I don't really want to go into too much because it wouldn't be
Oh,
fair to the
okay.
person.
Good.
But yeah, just
Okay, give me a
frustrations with
okay.
personal relationships. Say that.
Oh no, let's go. Let's tear into that.
No.
Please. No, I meant now. It's like in a court case. You don't use names, gender, specifics. You look at it from like a constitutional viewpoint. I don't want to know anything about what you're going through, just the ideas behind it.
The trouble, Ron, is that my mom
Okay.
listens to these, and I don't think that she would
Oh.
appreciate me talking
Oh,
badly
okay.
about other family members. So
Oh no. Okay, I'm Mrs. Pallitson. Your son plays well with others. Well, good on you.
Well, okay. Let me
So-
see if I can do this while still being respectful.
Okay, respect.
I was trying to communicate that there are things that the news are portraying in a certain way, and I know from personal first-hand or technically second-hand knowledge that
Yeah.
the way that that is being portrayed, howdy McMo,
Yeah.
the way that that is being portrayed is incorrect.
Sure. Okay. Gotcha.
And I cannot get this person to even acknowledge the fact that the news might be lying.
Oh, sure.
And
Listen, I got this. I can make this. Oh, go ahead, please.
no, that was it. Good.
No, no. Okay, so I have a. Let's make this easier. Let's talk about my family.
Okay.
They don't listen, and I don't care. They're crazy. They're bat crazy. They work their way up from nothing, and they're like crazy rich, and they believe the news. And some of their kids are doctors and lawyers, and I'm like, you need to stop watching TV and listen to Fauci, Dr. Fauci, and start talking to your kids who are doctors and lawyers, and ask them, hey, does the government lie about? Well, I'll go even one step further. One of my family members, he actually his brother-in-law, he worked for one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the nation. He was one of the top 5 bean counters, and when the vaccine came out, he said to one of my family members that he's married to, the statistics, they can make statistics say whatever they want.
Yep.
And I'll say it, it's my sister, it's not a big deal. She's a welfare judge. She's a brilliant person. She flipped out. Like, they can't talk about it because she, blind faith, believes in, she'll just say the word science.
Yep.
And I'm like, and it's really just, science is TV. Science is not math, statistics, probability, show me the proof. It's the guy on TV saying, you need to do this because we know that.
Well, the high priest specifically. Not just the guy on TV, but the high priest on TV told me to do this.
Oh, yeah. And, like the science, which is, actually I got an axe to grind here, and I think this might be the right place to do it, is my mom she was like, dude, it hit the fan bad. I thought my mom was about to split. And I'm at my mom's bedside mourning, and somebody in my family starts texting me, politics equals identity. And then they started going on about science and how people on the right don't believe science. And I'm like, what the hell does this have to do with mom? And the reason I'm saying all this is when you talked about blind faith, it's really not blind faith. I think it's brainwashing.
Well,
or
yeah,
propaganda.
But how do you tell the difference between those?
Between what, please?
Is that a distinction without a difference is maybe a better way of saying that, or asking that.
Help me understand what you're asking.
So, when you say blind faith versus, what was the other word? Or the other phrase?
I think, well, I don't know, I was rambling, but it was basically statistical mathematics. Or just show me not just statistical mathematics, show me on paper your work.
Which,
by
the
what
way,
kind of...
I can't help myself. I'm terrible at science. That's why I'm an awful HVAC engineer. Like, I don't understand science at all, so I can't do my job properly.
You don't, and you can't talk. Wait, here you are saying you're a lousy employee, but you can't talk about your family. No, you talk about your family in public, and then you fake your job. You got it all.
Yeah, I got backwards.
I need to learn you some things. But all right.
So Ryan, Santa isn't real. We're gonna have to really get this into your head.
Oh gosh, you're gonna pop someone's bubble live on there. So sad. There will be tears. Yes.
Also, Grizz has got some good stuff in the chat. I just have not found a good place to weave it into the conversation yet.
I can't read it. Tell me what Grim is grimming about.
So the first one, because we're already gonna, like, if we're getting community noted, it's already there. There was a study back in the day about how vaccines cause autism and how like that was really pushed back against by all the scientific stuff, and it was like memed on super hard by all sorts of things. And just recently they took ethyl mercury, which was an antifungal agent that they were using in the vaccines, out of the vaccines. So it's no longer being used as an ingredient. Interesting things. And then after that, him shilling his Substack article about government, which I had a pretty good comment on that one too, so go check it out. And then CC saying we love propaganda.
Propaganda is just... What is propaganda? Well, I wanna try to ride the wave you're setting up here. There is no Santa. I just did my rant.
I want to hear what McMo has to say. What he thinks of this.
Oh, please. Bring out the McMo. Wait, Kierkegaard.
The fact that you got that and put it into branding just tickles me pink.
Here I am. You called, I've answered. I don't think that blind faith and brainwashing are the same thing.
Brainwashing. Okay.
Yeah, that was what the word Ron said that you were asking about.
Yep.
Well, originally I came on because I wanted to pose a dangerous idea, which is it's better to be gullible than it is to or another way to put it is like I don't think it's that important of a lesson that people lie. It would be better if you never learned that lesson. And that's like I know that's like a dangerous, like I feel like that's a dangerous thing to say, because I think like common sense says if you're careful and you don't believe everything you see on TV, then you're like in a better position, that you're like smarter and wiser and less likely to get hurt, damaged by lies. But the other thing is like it's very difficult to stop the cynicism. It's very difficult to start believing people again.
Yep.
And so, yeah, I sometimes wonder if it would be much better to just be like a normie. Like here's a thought experiment is like, cause then y'all took it to COVID or whatever. And then like family members that have varying political views, which I feel like I've got, I'm trying to run through the Rolodex. I've got a lot of friends who are way farther left than me, and I've got a lot of family who's way farther right than me. But like normie right, It's not like my parents are like reading Mencius Moldbug or.
I was like, Chris, you alright with anybody?
Yeah. My dad is like, this Nick Fuentes character is a pretty special guy. No, it's not like that at all.
Don't do that. Don't go there.
But yeah, so like I don't know. In some sense, I get the feeling of like being grieved that like my loved ones have like Fox News takes, or that my friends are like their whole personality is like influenced by the infographics they read on Blue Sky. I get that feeling, but then I also like the thought experiment is something like there are people out there who, when the government told them to mask up, they masked up. When the government said get a vaccine, they got a vaccine. When the government said go back to work, they went back to work. When the government said you don't have to wear a mask anymore, they didn't have to wear a mask anymore. And for the most part, their life is like basically back to normal.
Yep.
It's like how many people are like that, where it was just like they did what they were told, nothing bad happened, they're fine. And so obviously that doesn't take into account things like socioeconomic trends or like societal norms. Like of course there is like things worth talking about there. But yeah, this whole discussion has just made me wonder about like, is it so bad to just be a normie and to have normie views and to think that the government has your best interest in heart and that your elected representatives are in Washington representing your best interests? Is it so bad to think that that's what's going on? And if it is so bad to really think that that's what's going on, why is it so bad?
Well, that's the kind of weird paradoxical thing. I think that if the system is working properly, you are 100% correct. That if the people in charge do actually have your best interests at heart, then it is, especially on an individual level, like evaluating a lot of metrics over the course of a person's lifetime, like you're going to suffer a lot less, you're going to deal with a lot less stress, a lot less heartache, a lot less worry and concern, because you're not going to be constantly questioning whether the people who are over you are lying to you. But when things break, and things inevitably break, and they break faster the more lies that get told, then it's no longer, like, it works until it doesn't, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it's like a good soldier, right? Like,
Yeah.
It's great to be who was I just? It was Sean Carroll. At the, I don't know if you know that name. He was a head football coach of the Seattle Seahawks and USC, University of Southern California.
Okay.
And he was like given some sort of like class on like leadership or something in like a college classroom setting. And somebody asked him to like differentiate basically his coaching style with Bill Belichick's coaching style. Bill Belichick, famously of the Patriots, Tom Brady, that kind of thing. And he basically laid out this spectrum of like how they approach kind of new recruits or like new players on the team. And what was interesting to me was not the differences. I think the differences were fairly obvious, but there was actually a similarity. And the similarity was that both the kind of winsome, we're going to leave room for the individual, which Sean Carroll kind of compared, that was his coaching style. He compared it to kind of how special ops are run, where it's not like, these aren't grunts, basically. They're not trained to just like say yes, sir, and do it. They're actually trained to think and problem solve, and to, if they've got, I remember hearing Jocko Willing talk about, he would put the mission plan in front of his men and then ask if there was anything wrong with it and take suggestions. And it was almost like this very kind of, like kumbaya liberal type of way to plan on killing the bad guys. So yeah, to get it back to the football, Sean Carroll said that Bill Belichick would basically drive dudes into the ground so that he doesn't have to worry about the individuality. He just wants people to do their job and to be dependable in doing their job. And so he kind of put the dudes through the shit to break them down in order that they would be pliable and would basically serve their purpose without any questions, and pliable and reliable, easy to remember. And then Sean Carroll was saying his method was, what was the same was he still put the new guys through the shits.
Yep.
But he put them through the shits so that they would basically know that they could handle the shits.
Yep.
And so it was all about that kind of strengthening of the individual, you could say. And I wonder if there's something about that involved. As I think back to my childhood, it's not like, I think it's easier with the older sibling, because my parents weren't like, we've been lying to you, Santa's not real. They were like, hey, we're going to let you in on a secret, and you're going to help us, and you're going to be a part of the secret for your sister so that she can continue to have the quote unquote magic happen, And so there was participation, and I'm sure she would, like my younger sister would probably have a different perspective on all of that stuff. And she's certainly less interested in like religious stuff than I am. And so, there'd probably be an easy case to be made that like, yeah, well, I got to participate. So I wanted to, and I ended up working for a church, the Church of Santa Claus. And I spread the good news of Santa Claus. And then my sister gets told Santa Claus is a lie. And so she flies out to California and never wants to be a part of the Church of Santa Claus ever again. But regardless, I don't know. Like, I think, there's something to be said for it. Like, all that to say, you still have to get put through the shit It's just that one shit kind of breaks you down and the other shit builds you up.
Yep.
And when you're in the shit, you really have no clue whether or not you don't know which one you're in.
Yep.
So
And it's kind of impossible to know which one you got yourself into until you're out the other side of it too. Like you can't know it without. You can't know it from the outside. You can't know it from looking at yeah.
well, have I totally derailed us? I feel like I just talked for like
no,
about
not
10
at all.
minutes.
It was good.
Actually, because I think because this is something I'd like to add to it. I think that was brilliant. Sometimes you're forced into it. You're forced into seeing Santa Claus isn't real. You're forced to see that the government does not always have your best interest at heart. And if you're young and vulnerable, that's a real bad day because you don't know how to navigate it because all your trust is shattered. And like, I guess I could, this is, okay. My example is when cocaine came into the United States, it came heavy into my neighborhood. And one of my best friends, was a drug dealer. He was poor, he didn't do it, and it was always weed. And then, because I had asthma, so I never partied with them because I was safe. And they just made a remark. They go like, all the weed is gone, but we got this cocaine. And it was like snow. It was just a blizzard.
All the weed is gone. All we have cocaine.
Yeah. And I was there and I saw what it did. And then I come to find out later on that there was this war down in Central America, the Sandinistas and Contras, and they were being allowed, one side was being allowed to ship cocaine into America to fund the war. God. And so that's my opinion. So this kind of goes back to your Santa Claus thing, except in a catastrophic way. Like when you and I'm not saying that America is always bad, but anyhow, so
We've done some bad stuff.
yeah, so here's my point. So if I think, all right, so how come, I think I'm trying to, what am I trying, because I liked what McMo said. Right? So you're going to be in it. It's going to hit you one way or another. So coming out of it for me was faith in Christ. Because, when McMo said that, you tell your sister Santa Claus isn't real and she flies off to California, it has nothing to do with Team Santa Claus ever again. With me, it was almost the same thing, except flying off the handle going, well, don't trust, all government's corrupt, people are a mess, and I'm screwed, and so eat, drink, be merry, because you're going to die anyhow. And then for me, it was a contact moment, a supernatural contact moment with Jesus that reestablished that there is real love in the universe, that there is someone on our side, and that, people are messed up, governments are messed up, but not all people are messed up, and not all people in government are messed up. Ride it out. Try to find for me, it's finding a balance between the truth that the governments are at times squirrely, and because I've hung out with you guys, eventually all systems fail. But it's the best system around, so work as hard as you can to preserve it, to heal the rift between those that have been betrayed that there is no Santa Claus and the ones that know that there hasn't been one for a while and still know that in actuality there was a Santa Claus, and that he has that spirit is here. It's just it's been supersized in Jesus.
What's
I don't know if
interesting
that-
to me, what's interesting to me is how I actually think that the United States government is somehow in between Santa Claus and Jesus Christ on the spectrum of like plausibility, believability, and reality. Like, maybe not fully believability, but what was coming to mind while you were talking, Ron, was how people say things like, you know, I give my love freely, but you're gonna have to earn my respect. And then oftentimes trust is one of those things too. It's like, you have my respect, but it's gonna take a long time till you earn my trust. You know, like there's all these kind of weird ways in which people will like brag about being cynical about other people. And it's actually like something I've been thinking about for a long time, because me and my wife, when we were, before we were getting married, we read this book about like love and respect or whatever. And like, you know, men want respect and women want love. And so men are supposed to love their wives and wives are supposed to respect their husbands, yada, yada, yada. But it just occurred to me that like, we have this notion of unconditional love, but we don't really have a notion for unconditional respect or unconditional trust. It's like respect and trust and many other things are like the definition of conditional, you know, at least in how we interact with those emotions or those relations, those like types of relationships. And because of Kierkegaard, I often think, you know, what would happen if we made trust unconditional? What if I offered you my unconditional trust? You know, and Afriel, what if I gave you my unconditional respect? And I just said, there's nothing you can do. I'm still going to respect you. Or Ron, there's nothing, you can lie to me for the rest of your life. I'm still going to trust you. If you tell me to walk off of a cliff because there's an invisible bridge there, I'm going to do it. And to me, I'm like, I can't see anything morally or ethically wrong about that. It's just so dangerous. It seems so dangerous. I feel like I could die even like pretending to believe that I could do it.
Yep.
And whenever I feel something like that, I'm like, ooh, that might be what I'm supposed to do. Uh-oh.
So like, Mo,
I
I've
may
got
have found
this
a thing.
lovely bridge I want you to try.
Yeah.
April, I'm telling
some
your
beach-
mom. She
Some
listens.
beachside property in Idaho.
Well, so I got a question for you. So where, and I'm asking because I'm not pushing back, is where would that, did Jesus do any of that in the Gospels? He had, and I'm asking.
I don't think so. But I could be wrong.
Well, the problem
Well,
is I can't think of any instance where he was disrespectful to someone. Maybe he called the lady a dog. You know, he did call the Gentile Samaritan lady a dog. That's not very respectful. But I'm sure that he's, you know, that's an interesting, weird passage anyway. But I get the sense from Christ that he kind of always did exactly what he needed to do, as a, you know, and whether or not he needed to do it because, you know, Christ is basically like Euthyphro's dilemma embodied. You know, was Christ's life perfect because he lived it perfectly, or did he live it perfectly because his life was perfect? Like, you know, that kind of thing. So I think it would probably be very difficult to find an example of, well, for one, trust. It seems like I don't know how much he trusted other people around him.
Can I actually help you?
Go ahead. Yeah, go. You ask. Yeah, go.
Because he actually trusted the Father completely. And it was unto death.
Yeah.
So you might have something there. That's interesting. Unconditional trust and respect. That would actually the one. It would be Jesus to God. So that actually, does that make sense?
Yep. That makes
So
perfect
what does
sense.
that do? So
Well,
what
'cause
does
here's
that
the-
do?
Here's the thing: is where Kierkegaard gets some of this thinking, and where I kind of jumped off from Kierkegaard is because he's talking when I started getting these ideas again after I read his chapter on the verse where it says love believes all things.
Mm-hmm.
And we really don't, I've never heard a really good sermon on love believing all things, and it seems a very scary thing to do, to believe it. In fact, common sense says to do the opposite. It says, don't believe everything. Don't believe everything you hear.
Don't believe what you, Yes, don't believe what you see. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, but I think you're 100% right. Like Christ unconditionally trusted the Father. And actually, I think that there's a way in which he unconditionally respected the apostles because of his willing to serve them. Right? Like if you think of respect as kind of looking up to someone, well, that's the whole idea, is that Christ put himself at the bottom and he kind of serves his apostles. So yeah, there is a way in which, but then what was interesting to me is I don't know of
What would you classify Jesus' relationship with Judas as? That he was distrustful of him, knowing that he would betray him, or that he trusted him to betray him?
That's exactly where I was going at.
Okay.
It was Judas.
I read your mind.
Because it's obvious that Judas seems to lie to him at some point or something. He would have had to. But then also at the Last Supper, Jesus seems to know exactly who it is and who's going to do it. And it's not the guy he called Satan a few days earlier, which is also interesting. But well, that's the thing about Jesus, is literally every single thing is infinitely interesting. But yeah, so there's a sense in which, that's why I said it's almost like a Euthyphro's dilemma kind of thing, because it's quite possible that through his connection with the Father and the spiritual and the Holy Spirit, it's quite possible that he could just there's instances of him understanding what people were thinking, and it's unclear whether that's some sort of telekinesis or whether it's just kind of being smart and reading facial expressions.
Actually, if I may on this one, I'll go. No, it's not smart in reading facial expressions, because he was grieved because their hardness of heart. He could, and I think we can, perceive other people's hearts. And this one, I think that yes.
No, you're right, Ron. I was just using. Forgive me. I was using the materialist vernacular.
Right. Yeah, that's cool. No,
does that constitute trust or distrust then? That's
the thing, is if he has perfect knowledge, then he doesn't need to trust, right? And so to the extent that he trusts, it's almost a condescension, like he has to kind of suspend his disbelief. His like omniscient foreknowledge, and or it's his. And this is why it gets tricky. You start getting into heresies if you try to divide Christ's natures. And I can't even remember whether to divide them. If he has two wills, that's a heresy, or one will, that's a heresy. I can't remember. Dangerous waters. But yeah, the thing is like, what constitutes trust, right? Like, is it believing the best about someone else, believing the veracity of their words, but like assuming good faith on the other's part? Or is it like you were pointing to, Af, with like trusting Judas to betray him? Is it just kind of a faith in the importance of that person's role in your life somehow, for better or for worse? Yeah.
Doesn't it say in Scripture, Psalms? It's like Jesus loved Judas and wept for him, like he was a friend. So, and I'm just
here's the thing, Ron. He was he was a betrayer and an enemy, but that doesn't mean that Jesus loved him any less.
Yep.
You know,
Right,
the
right,
guy who
right,
who told us to love our enemies, we can safely assume that he was loving his enemies. And Father, forgive them; they know not what they do. And so it's a very, there's always this like this weird kind of cyclical thought pattern that happens when you ponder Christ, because there's a sense in which, for Christians at least, this intense desire to be like him, you know, and to love as he loved, and to be one with him as he is one with the Father, and all this stuff. The other sense, there's just this obvious, he is so ahead of us, you know, like he's the name of all names, you know, the man of the Trinity, you know, the Son of Man, slain before the foundation, the Lamb of God, slain before the foundation of the earth, the Word of God, you know, who is with God and was God in the beginning, the Logos, you know, like I don't think you can really understand Christ unless you understand that kind of. Well, here you go. A lot of times theologians will talk about the aseity of God and the immanence of God. Hold on, my wife just came out to talk to me. Pause 1 second.
Hello, Mrs. McMo.
She said she didn't come out to talk to me.
Okay.
But to be honest, it's hard to rant about theology on the internet when your wife is looking at you funny.
Again? Seriously? This is like the third time this week.
Yeah, no, actually, she's very happy that I'm ranting about theology now, because I've just been a grumpy Gus during the move. I do not like moving. But before I get distracted,
Did
there's
the cat situation get resolved?
No, we have a trap set out at our old house. We're going to be designing flyers and putting them up, and, you know, sending them to the vets and stuff. But yeah, it's a very fine line, trying to hold out hope that she will be trapped. And then also, you know, if it's the Lord's will for her to just kind of live out the rest of her days in that little ravine where she ran to, then, you know, that's the Lord's will. Blessed be the name of the Lord. But it's very sad.
Now, do you have a live trap? So you have a live trap, the one of those cage things? Is that right?
Yeah.
You have, okay. If you have any of her old bedding or your stuff, put it in there. Yep. Okay. All right.
So yeah, there's food, and then it's covered in one of the stinky cat blankets. Also, thanks to Joe on the Discord, I put out her litter box out there too, which apparently can help as well. But you know, to be honest, it's very related to all of this, like believing all things, because love also hopes all things. But that's a whole nother discussion. But it's connected. I guess where I wanted to kind of stick the landing on that was that, like, just in the same way that people talk about how God is like wholly other, completely different than us, but also he's like intensely immanent and intimate. You know, he knows the hairs on our head. He knows the thoughts in our head. He knows the thoughts we should be thinking. He can probably count the molecules as we inhale and exhale, and he knows where each atom is moving to and came from, and all of that. He cares. He still cares about us, you know. But so that kind of being extremely immediate, but also infinitely far, I think is a similar thing, which is why I think so many people and Christians think that it's in some ways quite obvious that Christ is Lord, and that you know, basically ergo Trinity, you know, which is, I didn't expect to come on here and give a defense of the Trinity, but there we have it.
Yeah.
There's something in my mind, because we're getting back to, because for me, it was to know Jesus, knowing men's hearts. And also to, because you just painted a big picture, and I'm trying to bring it all back in.
Yeah, that's my bad. I feel like
No,
it's
no, no,
somewhat
no, no,
inevitable
no,
whenever we talk about Jesus, but
no, no, no. But
um,
here's the deal.
forgive me.
I need to. No, just the opposite. I'm stepping in the ring. So what I have to do is collect all the pieces on the table, and I need to zoom out 20,000 feet and still find the fractal in it. So, because we were talking about respect.
Do you think
Mhm.
God trusts us? Do you think God respects us? Because he's no
Well,
respecter of persons.
well, actually, what he would have in he loves us and he sees value in us, original value. He does see our sin, but he also sees original value. And in us, the answer would be yes. Because there would have to be an original, since we are his creation and we were made perfect, then fell. Before the fall, there would have been a respect that would have been perfect.
Okay, here you go.
Mhm.
Because you reminded me just now that we were trying to distinguish between blind faith and being brainwashed. And it's almost
Right.
it's very similar to like the holiness of Christ versus the innocence of Adam pre-fall, like you were just getting to. And so I think I'm going to put forth a proposition for our little quorum here, which is all the way back to Santa Claus, and why Af I think was maybe got on here to maybe talk about a little bit more. Is it, I'll just do a stereotype. So like my boomer parents who are Fox News brained, there's two. They basically use three channels on their TV. It's like Fox News, HGTV, and ESPN. Is it that they respect those channels and they respect those people, and because they leverage that conditional respect to trust those people as well, right? And so when Af or someone like me or you with your sister, I think it was Ron, when we kind of try to come to them and say, hey, something's different here, maybe this isn't exactly how you see it. Well, it's not just that you're asking them to not trust the people that they listen to. It's also that you're disrespecting the people that have gained their respect, and nobody thinks that they're giving out unconditional respect or unconditional trust, but they are. They just don't know it. And so, yeah, I wonder how that thinks. But where were you? Is that jiving with where you were going with kind of thinking about the fall and like innocence versus guilt, or am I totally off?
It's orbiting. Are you telling me or Afro?
Well, I felt like I interrupted you, but I just had that insight
No.
about what Af was talking about earlier.
Tell you,
Okay, so there's a difference. There's absolutely a difference between brainwashing and propaganda, for sure. Oh, but getting back to what you just said was good, because if you present something that's truthful, that breaks someone's paradigm frame, and they have to disrespect those that gave it to them, their information, because this is what happened to me when I came to Christ. Being Jewish, I'm like, oh, heck no. That means everybody in my past was wrong. And then when you take the new information and go, what if it's right? That moment where you say, what if, it feels like your fallen conscience feels unclean. So even if, I don't know if I'm answering your question.
I think that's brilliant. I think I'm following along. I think you're really hitting on something important there, that it's because it brings up the idea of like repentance or metanoia. right?
Mhm.
And all the times where Jesus says, like, blessed is he who is not offended by me, or he who does not relieve father and mother, brother and sister to follow me is not worthy of me. Like those kind of hard sayings, I think that they're just really kind of pointing to that exact reality that you're talking about, where it's like when you come to Christ, and it's something that happens a big time, I think, at the conversion moment, but it's also
Mhm.
something that kind of just happens little by little, or it should in a
Mhm.
Christian's life.
Right.
What else? Repentance has got to be something like that. Metanoia, the renewing of our minds has to be something like that, where we're just kind
Mhm.
of coming to this realization of like, oh crap, I've been wrong this whole time. And the people that I trusted to give me reliable information, including about who's giving me the presents on Christmas morning, have
Right.
proven themselves not worthy of that respect and trust.
Right.
And so who am I going to trust? My parents who lied to me about Santa Claus, or this, insane historical character who I also happen to have had mystical experiences with? It's like
Mhm.
it's a real predicament. It puts one in a real bond.
Well,
So
but
I
if,
think
but if,
that's actually part like that there was something that I wanted to talk about this and then I forgot about it and so it didn't make it into my outline. I think that that's actually a wrong way to think about it. I think that if you take away from it that I can't trust them ever, I think that that's also
right.
incorrect. That you have to temper that
That's
and
really good.
realize there's elements that you should be more wary of whether they're telling you the truth or not, but that doesn't mean that you should be throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Just because Hitler breathed oxygen doesn't mean that you should stop breathing.
Yes, a very good warning, I think. But my only pushback to that would be yes, and still there has to be this kind of categorical step down, at least in priority, right? Like,
Yep.
if my parents and Jesus agree on something, well, then that's everything's Gucci. If my parents and Jesus don't agree, well, that puts me in a type of existential bind. It's like, okay, how do I follow the law in this instance? And there may be some. I'm sure there's lots of ink has been spilled over the type of ethical quandary, something like this. But I'm just so convinced by Kierkegaard in terms of what one is expected, what the Lord expects from us in those ethical quandaries. And it has to do with the law of liberty, and it has to do with Christian absurdism. But fundamentally, it's exactly what we're talking about. It's that, when there's something strange in the neighborhood, who are you going to call?
Ghost,
It's,
Jesus. Wait, that's not.
where does the buck stop? And in some senses, you could say it stops with the individual. And this is what I'm trying to not say, is that like what's most important is your own ability to navigate the situation. That can't be the answer. At the same time, if the proper importance is not put on the individual, then you'll lack the agency needed to carry through with the action. And that's to say nothing of the kind of ethical quandary, whatever it is, however small. In the moment, it feels enormous. But like, part of me wants to give like a personal example, but I think I'm going to follow your lead, Af, and remain silent on the person, revealing the secrets of those close to me. But suffice it to say, like I've recently been in multiple situations like this, where the choice seems to be to listen to my conscience and to be a pebble in the shoe of my loved ones, or go along, get along, shut your trap, suffer in silence. And I mean, I guess you could probably tell by the way that I just kind of put those that in my scenario, the suffering in silence seemed a little bit more like the easy option. For other people and for me at other times, being the pebble in the shoe is the more tempting direction to go in. But there's better and worse reasons for each action. And so once again, it's back to this kind of you've got to do the right thing for the right reason, or it doesn't matter for anything.
Mm.
Why was I saying that? Oh yeah, because you're right to say like, but this is the like the truth of that kind of Christ needing to take supremacy in one's like decision tree is kind of true whether or not you make the mistake of thinking that your parents don't know anything, right? Because to the extent that they are gifts given to you by God and you them, you know, there are of course going to be ways in which you wouldn't be, you know, even if you took a completely selfish view, it's hard to hate your parents, you know, unless they were absolutely horrible people. And that's not to say that doesn't happen quite a bit, but it's not the point I'm trying to make here. It's more so that like, I think that, yeah, what you're pointing to is how difficult the problem can be. Because I don't know if we want to say that there are no situations for no people where the correct decision to be made would to be like, I'm never talking to these people again, and you know, you are no longer my mother, you are no longer my father. You know, maybe if you get dementia one day and forget that you have lived an unrepentant life and you hate me, then maybe we can be, you know, like I guess I'm just giving the caveat of like sometimes special circumstances may require boundaries of some sort or another. Even though I'm not a fan of that kind of line of thinking. On the other hand, I still can't help but think of it as quite heroic to almost be like Dostoevsky's The Idiot, and to just, or Rocky Balboa, you know, and just in regards to especially my family, especially my friends, especially well, this is the crazy thing too, for Christians it's also supposed to be our neighbor, but that kind of like I'm going to love you whether you want me to or not kind of a mentality, I think is very, very attractive, like despite the ways I mess it up.
This is a PvP server, doesn't just apply to the people trying to play the negative game. It also means that I get to love you even if you don't want me to.
And it seems like we are obliged to love those that are killing us. Sounds so weird. But that, I am afraid, is how it is. And I'm not saying that begrudgingly, because of, and getting back to McMo's surrender, okay, because it was sounding scary. Like, it almost insane, you know, like scary. But if you do surrender and you do love, then it works in an eternal realm that you're already in now, that we are already in now. Whereas if you don't forgive and you don't love, you're stuck here. You don't go, well, actually, no, you go into eternity, but in a different way. So, does this, that's interesting, because when you said to trust, you know, when you said all those things, I'm like, yeah, that's pretty funny. And then I thought about God, Jesus to God. I'm like, wait a second. So Jesus did, and he got whacked because of it, hard, but because he did it voluntarily and properly, he overcame it, death, hell, and the grave. And if we do the same thing, we get the same outcome. And it's a pretty good payoff. So it's worth doing, which sounds so mercenary, but what actually happens is that on a good day, your enemy who kills you when you're finally dead says, surely this was the Son of God. And then the people that, you know, we get to be okay if you die properly, right? You know, and then
That's why I'm practicing, Ron.
Oh God, Lord, we are here to heal Afriel, Pilotson, for surely he has sinned just now. And we, being more holy and righteous and pure, beseech the end. So, I don't know. This is because just recently, this has nothing to do with family. I had a difficult moment with someone, and it hurt, really wounded. And I was ticked at him. And then, because we've all been playing this game for a while, like, okay, the first thing I know I need to do is forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
And then I need to bless them, and then I need to ask God to let me see them as He sees them. And this has taken a few days, and then I have this conversation, which has actually been pretty helpful, because it just helps put the polish on the fact that in some way there is no Santa Claus, but in some way there is. In that maybe it's the way someone tells you there's no Santa Claus might make the difference. And then going on saying, yeah, there's no Santa Claus, but there might be a spirit here. But by the way, the guy who was Santa Claus was really honoring this fellow named Jesus. Would you like to hear about this? Because this guy was inspiring, so much so that it made Santa Claus the story that he is today.
I think that the story that Mo told about, like, hey, like, we're gonna have you help keep a secret. Like, you're gonna become part of it, and then you're gonna help. Like, here's the reason why we lied to you, and here's how you're gonna help us make it magical for the next person too. Because, like, I want you to reflect on how much you appreciated the magic that we gave you through this lie, and to recognize that it's not, at least within that context, that the lie is not a bad lie to tell. But that still leaves me in a rough spot, because I think that that's not teaching the lesson of skepticism that I would like for the Santa Claus story to teach.
Well, two things. So so two things. One will humble the visage of my parents in your eyes, perhaps, and maybe the second one will bring it back up.
Okay.
And it's the second one's more of an answer to your question about how to kind of inculcate the skepticism, healthy skepticism, you could say. The first is, my parents actually, my dad in particular, geniusly seeded me with the cover story before dropping the news. And so probably for 6 months, maybe a year beforehand, anytime Santa Claus would come up and I would ask, Dad, is Santa Claus real? He would kind of take a skeptical position. He would say, you know what? I don't know. All I know is if you don't believe in Santa Claus, you don't get any presents. And so I was like, ooh, well, I want to get presents, so I'm going to believe in Santa Claus. But that also became what I could say to people, and it was kind of totally true. If you don't believe in Santa Claus, you don't get any presents from Santa Claus. If you believe in Santa Claus, you get all your presents come from Santa Claus. It's kind of crazy like that, So that was it wasn't just like they gave me a cover story, and to me, I'm like, that's kind of funny. I don't know if it makes them look better or worse, but it's funny. But I was going to say the skepticism part was not related to Santa Claus at all. It was because they listened intently to the sermon every week and had small quibbles, and they discussed their quibbles over lunch right after church. And so I listened to them hear the word of God from the man of God, and not just kind of let it wash over them like everything he said was true, but they tested the spirits, and sometimes they definitely fell into probably gossiping or judging. I'm sure of course they made mistakes and went too far, and they have personality foibles that can get carried away. But all that to say, that was where the kind of perhaps skepticism, healthy or not, was inculcated for me. but obviously you can see how that would be wrapped up in issues of authority.
Yes.
Which I don't know. Now that I'm thinking about it, does that get back to the kind of? Is that why the unconditional trust is connected to the unconditional respect in some weird way? That kind of authority structure. I did when I was a young man, I kind of thought that like all truth was based on authority, because you had to, in order for trust to be, or forever, in order for you to hear something and trust it, you had to trust the person that was giving it to you. And the best way to trust somebody is for them to be an authority over you, because they're kind of, you're entrusted to them, you know, on a little play on words, you're entrusted to them, so you trust them. But yeah, now I give a little bit more agency to the individual and a little bit more variety to the human population about how they, you know, behave in those types of relationships. But I think the truth still, like, I think that there's still a nugget in there that might be helpful for your problem, Af, which is to say, I don't think you teach a healthy skepticism with something that's like not on the same level of importance or truth or reality. You know, like you teach that healthy skepticism with like the most important things in life, which are, you know, for my family in that context was, you know, the word of God given by the man of God on Sunday. So, yeah. I mean, I think there's a secular way to do that too, right? It's like you watch Fox News, but you comment on it. You have disagreements. You push back. You say, I don't know about that. That doesn't quite make sense. And even if you can't do that, maybe you turn on some of the if you're thinking about being like the relationship between a father and a son, for instance, how do you kind of teach a child that kind of healthy skepticism? Is like, well, you expose them to things you disagree with, and you point out the lies. You know, you show them the moves, you show them the tricks. Maybe it's better done on the side of evil than the side of like good, in terms of like I mean, of course we could get into the pagan, you know, the fact that Santa Claus is a perversion of Saint Nicholas, you know, that kind of thing. But I don't really care about that too much. I like Santa Claus. I like the fantasy. I totally understand parents who are like, no, we're telling our kids the truth from the very beginning. I think that's a cool move. But also, like, you know, I don't really get too twisted up if parents want their kids to kind of have that magical, enchanted experience growing up. It's totally fine by me. Not my kids.
Well, I think that's what it comes down to in a lot of cases, though, is that you have to allow for a level of individual choice. You have to allow for people to make the call for themselves, to listen to the voice of God as best they can hear it, and then make their own decisions with the free will that God gave them about whether to listen or whether to trust that that is actually the voice of God. Because I feel like that's another big part of it, too, is just because you think that God or Jesus is telling you to do something doesn't mean that that's actually the voice. Like, my sheep will know my voice, but what makes you so confident that you're already one of his sheep?
Wait a second, if I may.
Go ahead.
And I'm not pushing back.
You're allowed to push back.
Well, no.
Push him back, Ron. Push him all the way back.
Push him back. Well, here's the
Shove
thing.
him back. Way back.
That's it. None of us are his sheep when we first hear him.
Mm-hmm.
It's always first. It's an introduction.
Mm-hmm.
So, and also I'd say, never in the Bible, except for Paul, does someone go, "Okay, you're not. I don't know you." Actually, Paul accepted Jesus. He just went, "But who are you?"
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I think everyone else goes, well, actually, I'll cut Paul some slack. The guy who had blind eyes didn't know who Jesus was till after Jesus showed up. Why was I saying this? It's something you
Yeah, there's something, I don't know.
Mhm.
I thought you were headed towards the idea of like, Well, maybe my pushback, maybe it's a pushback towards you, Ron, but I think you got there, which is, I think for some people, there is this kind of big conversion moment, right? Where they see that they've been living a lie. And this is with Christ, but this is also with, Fox News or, NPR, whatever, whatever myth you were buying into, whatever idol you were sacrificing to.
NPR is an interesting one. Let me look back when you finished.
To me, it reminds me of idolatry, right? You have to, there's a certain pain, and this, I guess I would want to put it in the idolatry because I think that's a little bit more universal than the conversion experience. I think that there's a category in the kingdom of God for my people, like his people, and then there's a category that are not his people who have become his people. And this is like the story of Hosea, basically, and a story of Gentiles, and the story of like the second part of Romans, a lot of Romans, the book of Paul's book to the Romans. But yeah, so to stick the landing, there's always going to be the kind of extremes of like, yeah, I was a complete idol worshiper. Like I gave offerings to Artemis and the town square of Ephesus. And then there's going to be people like Timothy, who grew up in a good Jewish home with 2 God-fearing women, his mom and his grandmom looking after him, no sign of a dad, maybe didn't have a good dad, but he becomes Paul's like right-hand man, and basically just as probably in scripture, the person that Paul seems to trust most in his whole life is Timothy. Yeah. And so, yeah, those are just 2 examples, but like, I think the bigger point is that it's like, it has to do with the individual, and that even something as universal as idolatry is kind of acted out in these very particular individualistic ways. And because the thing is like, nobody's going to make you stop worshiping the idol. It's like the similar thing of like, no man can serve 2 masters. It's like, you'll either love one and hate the other, or you'll hate the one and love the other. And you're the kind of one who will determine that, or at least you're the one who will be doing the loving or the hating.
Yep.
And so, yeah. Is that kind of, that's what I was hearing you kind of saying in some ways.
Yep. Yeah, that's about it. And I think
what were you going to say about NPR?
Oh, I was going to say, this is kind of like a tangential thing, but like, I wonder, when you have someone who's using the NPR voice, how much of that is deliberately due to doing studies on how different kinds of voices have different sorts of hypnotic effects on people?
Afriel, a little bit slower, please. An announcement.
I haven't practiced my NPR voice that much, Ron. I'm sorry to disappoint you.
When I was loving NPR, the like type of voice was like, what's the guy from This American Life? It was just like this very twee, hipster, Portland, Brooklyn. It was like, Obama started a library in southern Oklahoma. It's going to be the largest library in the world. After this, classical music from Stravinsky's Third Symphony, followed by car talk.
You nailed it. You nailed it on Stravinsky.
Kill me.
Ira Glass. Spatch got it.
Oh!
I used to love Radiolab. Af, I feel like you'd be a Radiolab guy.
I've never tried to listen to it, so I wouldn't know. But
damn, you would have. It was probably for the better, but you would have loved Radiolab. There's still some good. I could probably go back and listen to some Radiolab, and it'd probably still hold up. I imagine. Maybe not. Maybe not. The best public radio I've ever heard is a BBC radio show podcast. Oh shoot, I'm not going to be able to remember the name of it now. But anyway, they had, I think it was something called like Requiem for an Emergency Room or Requiem for a Hospital, something like that. It was this piece of like audio journalism that like made me like I've still to this day never experienced anything like it. So they basically interviewed, which one thing to note is that BBC Radio, they love making audio with like very crispy sounding background noise. So like in America, you usually try to isolate the voice, and like if you have background noise, it's usually like accidental or it's trying to like set the scene in some way. But in the same way that like BBC TV shows often have like weird editing, they experiment with like edits and like, you know, visual effects sometimes. The audio is the same way. And so this tickled me pink as a young man because I love audio stuff, you know. But this, let me tell you this episode. So they're in this hospital and they're interviewing like new parents. So anybody that comes to the emergency room with like having a baby right now. And then they followed some of those parents and interviewed other parents whose babies were like in the ICU or the NICU, the NICU. And then they interviewed some people who were like in their middle age, but had like life-threatening cancer. And then they interviewed these like very old people who were like on the last weeks of their life. And all of that was like, but with all of the like this hospital ambiance, ambient music, and this like choral arrangement, kind of a modern, and I mean that in the terms of like music history categorization, like a modern orchestral piece. It was one of the most, if not the most incredible piece of like audio content that I've ever listened to.
Interesting.
And I was washing windows at the time, and I was like crying on a roof. After like an hour, 45 minutes or an hour of this, I was just like, this is unbelievable. I can't believe I'm experiencing this transcendent beauty on a roof in the middle of nowhere, Western North Carolina.
It's the best place to find it, where you least expect it.
Perfect.
Somewhere nearby, Jordan Hall was, you know, realizing that Asheville was the perfect place to stay.
Get into the beehive. Gosh darn it. Am I gonna have to look this up?
So were you not like a podcast boy, Af? I just would have assumed that you would have been like me, like a big podcast guy in the like, because I think we're around the same age. And so like the early 20-teens were like the golden age of podcasts, in my opinion.
Not really. I was on Reddit a lot back in like college, and then after that for a while. Haven't used it in a couple of years, but that was more my jam, was like reading through and seeing all of these cool, interesting things that people were posting about and having conversations about. That was more my jam.
Yeah, I guess I was pretty early adopter to podcasts because my dad was big into podcasts, but he was big into like lectures on tape even before that. So I grew up listening to like long form people talking, and my parents are quite long-winded as well. If you can imagine that, you know.
No, say that would never.
When my family's tired, it's basically just like the internet. You know, everybody talks in this slow southern accent, and you gotta wait for 5-10 minutes before. But when they're in a better mood, it's lots of interrupting. I see we have Mark S. Not to take over hosting.
Oh, yeah, no. I appreciate you pointing it out. I'm trying to figure out how's it going, Mark?
Hey, what's up, guys? I just was listening, so I thought I'd hop in anyway. I don't have much to say, unless you want me to reminisce about when I used to watch NPR and cry.
Go for it.
But
yeah, dude.
No, I don't want. No,
you big car talk guy? Just shedding a couple tears to click and clack?
Honestly, car talk, those guys kind of annoyed me. But yeah, I definitely liked Radio Lab a lot. And yeah, This American Life.
I can't remember a single episode. Actually, I just remembered an episode of Radio Lab. And I think it was the first time I ever heard about like the psychology of a transgendered person. and they were talking about this guy he had basically, well, she, whatever. I think they were using the pronoun he at the time, or at least they used both. But regardless, I think that might be the only single episode I remember of Radiolab at this moment. I remember liking a lot of them, but the only one I can remember is that one. That might have been This American Life, I suppose, as well.
Yeah, I remember like on Sunday nights was when they would air all the banger shows, like, all the deep shows. And it would be like Radiolab, This American Life, and then there was another show that came on after that, which was like people telling this weird true stories about their life. And it's like now that there's like TLC and YouTube, I have no need for any of that stuff.
In the same way.
You know?
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way.
This is much well. Radiolab and This American Life were very well produced. That's the thing. Like they had a big budget, and had connections and everything. It was edited, but
I think the TLC could stand some more produced content. To be honest,
What?
I think everybody who live streams. I'm not a big should guy, but I think it's very healthy for people to have a kind of produced, not improvised collection of thoughts, ideas, concepts, images. I think that there's something really healthy about kind of putting yourself out there and risking, being wrong or being ugly or whatever. I think we get away with a lot because we just improvise most of the time. But there's also fun,
Well, there's probably more, but I think generally there's two kinds of podcasts. You have the produced podcast and you have the freeform podcast, and they both have their advantage. Like in a Joe Rogan I haven't listened, but or like in a rando in a McMo chill stream, it might be 8 hours long, and it might be pretty good, and then all of a sudden in 3 hours in you hear something absolutely amazing you'll never hear anywhere else.
Well, and I started to do that, and I have been bad about it, but I think that one of the things that we're not doing as much that we should do more is doing kintsugi cuts of our own stuff. Like McMo, once you're done doing your stream, either the next day or sometime in the next week, go back and listen through and see, okay, what were the really good bits that would make their own good 10-minute, 20-minute video.
Yeah, I think Luke Thompson should just do that for all of us.
Yeah? You think he'd be down to do that?
He should. It doesn't matter whether he wants to or not. It should be him.
God bless.
Well, he's one person that actually goes back and watches live streams after they're over.
Yeah.
I'll see his comments like, wow, he watched the live stream when it wasn't live.
Yep.
It's amazing. But another type of podcast is an edited one, and I have to say personally, like my all-time favorite podcasts are edited. They're produced a little bit. Like this one podcast about the history of country music called Cocaine and Rhinestones. It's my absolute favorite podcast ever. And it's like very heavily edited and researched and everything.
Also, Chris is saying that apparently Chad interviewed a Radiolabs guy back in the day.
As a matter of fact, I don't mean to come hijack and talk all the time, but yeah, I actually went with Chad to see that guy do some experimental music show from Radiolab.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was kind of fun. It was interesting. It was weird.
What do you mean when you say experimental music thing?
Oh, you don't know this about this dude?
No.
Chad. Sorry, Mark. I'm not gonna let you be the one who talks so much because I'm gonna be the one who talks too much. Yeah. So Chad interviewed this dude, and this dude is like, so I studied sound design,
Yep.
in college, right? So Chad just nabbed basically like one of the probably top 5, top 10 sound designers in the country. And the reason he must be so is because he was on Radiolab. But then also I listened to so this dude has an album, a project, and it is incredible work. It's the type of thing I wish I was doing, kind of a thing, you know? And so, yeah, and Chad had a really good conversation with him. The guy was like, I don't know why I'm on a internet show with a guy in a wrestling mask. But yeah, I remember when Chad said that you and him, Mark, went to that show, and I was like very jealous because I bet I would have loved that show. I can't remember his name.
I mean,
but
Simon something.
oh yeah,
But-
Simon and Garfunkel.
Yeah, it was Paul Simon actually. That was his
Paul
name.
Simon, yeah.
He's a folk singer. But yeah, it was like this presentation. It's really hard to explain because it was like meta ironic, weird, you know, to where I don't even know if it was serious. I think that's what it was supposed to be, like on the edge of is this serious? It was like he's supposed to be like selling a franchise, like a motivational speaker, and then he like tries to entrance people with this music, but the music was actually like really, like authentically really good. But it was all recordings, and then he would do these weird speeches in between, like saying there's hope in the world and we all need to believe in the source of the universe and all. And it was very strange because it almost felt like he didn't even care if he was being like, sincere. I don't know. I just couldn't tell if it was like authentic, you know. I mean, I think it was all just about showing off the music he made, which I don't really know that much about electronic music. I've heard my share, and I really enjoyed the music, that's for sure.
I think he was trying to almost self-consciously be like quote unquote meta modern, or post-ironic. Like there was a weird way in which like on the face he was kind of saying like, oh yeah, this is like obviously not a real, like these aren't actual tapes from, like he made it he made it out to be that these were like found tapes that were like from this cult or like this kind of like what is it? What are they called? Motivational speech club or something, but basically like a cult and a pyramid scheme type of thing, an MLM, but at the same time, you could tell that he kind of like he enjoyed the message of it, like he realized that like yeah, actually like there is something true about it. And so there was this weird kind of, it's kind of classic meta modern where it's trying to integrate the sincerity, the authenticity, and the propolicity and do it all and somehow remain kind of both distant and sincere, you know, in some weird way. But yeah, that's my kind of take on how you're describing it, Mark. Because I agree, it is kind of like hard to decipher.
You described it better than I did, and I was there. But it was, and the weird thing was there was like a lot of footage from the 90s, like maybe the early 90s. And then he got into like talking about his childhood and how the factory closed down in his hometown and how it was this tragic thing, but the town was going to bounce back and be better than ever. And it was just like, yeah, it was. I don't know. It was strange. I couldn't tell. Yeah. Anyway, I can't really talk about it like McMo can.
The audio engineer.
When I would listen to Radio Lab, what I was impressed with is I would close my eyes and I would see how they would, like blocks, they would have stories, and they would have stories built on stories, and how they would flow in and out. And it was almost like watching, when you can watch someone play piano and they have the notes stretch out, or like a player piano where you have the holes in the paper and you can see the notes. I would see how they have the story broken up and layered, and then how they would weave the sounds in and out, and I'm like, oh my gosh. It reminded me of listening to a Beatles album when it, when it was really done well. Like, you just hear so many layers, and they would all weave them together at the end, and I'm like, that to me, it made it enjoyable to listen.
Yeah, one Radiolab episode that I remember, and I actually don't remember that many, even though I listened to lots of them, is like this one about healing, actually, and how this person had leprosy or some type of really bad skin condition all over their arm. It was like all scaly and rotten, and they like saw this hypnotist, and the hypnotist said, just believe that it will go away, and they did, and it just went away, and it was like a medically incurable condition. And this was like on NPR they were telling us, but then years later it came back, and they tried to just believe it would go away again, and it didn't work. And that was like one of the stories. I always found that fascinating.
That's something I can listen to later on. Gentlemen, at this point in the game, the national anthem is playing in the background. The flag is being raised. This channel is signing off. It has been a blast.
They play the national anthem at the beginning of the game.
No, not that's. I'm talking about in the old days when
Caps.
TV used to go off the air. It was a sad moment. Da, 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 da. This ship is sailing. So, fellas, it's been fun, and I seriously, there's some things I'm going to be turning over in my head because I enjoyed the conversation, and just you should put up a Santa Claus, like a dead Santa Claus icon from ChatGPT or something. Maybe that's a little dark. Well, all right. Anyhow.
Go to sleep, Ron. You're drunk.
Yeah, not yet. But
Night's young.
All right. All right. Good night, guys.
Night, Ron.
Bye, Ron.
Peace, Ron.
Probably go for a little bit longer. Let's see if I can get the Hive Knight and try not to die here, which would be really bad because I have like 3,000 geo.
I don't know how people pay attention to what you're doing on the game, or how you do either.
In what sense? Like, how they find it entertaining, or how they find it,
Well, every time I watch video games, it basically just serves as like background stimulation to keep my ADD brain on track. But I don't. It's not as easy. Like when I'm listening to your streams, for instance, or like Noah's streams, I very rarely like watch what's going on. I just kind of like listen. And so yeah, it's always interesting to me just that people are like in the comments like keeping track of every time you die. I'm like, I don't even notice when you die. I don't even know what it looks like when you die. I don't even know the point of this game.
Well, like a lot of Metroidvanias, the point is more to get good than anything else. It's not necessarily... Like, there's a story that goes along with it, and it's a very interesting story, in my opinion, but for a lot of people, a lot of gamers, the point is more just to create different environments that you can practice the sorts of skills that you need in order to be good at fighting things in this sort of a game. Which does have adaptations to other domains too. It's not like this is something that gaining skill at games only gives you the ability to do better at games. I think that there's a lot of things that the ways of processing information are beneficial in other domains too. But
If only it helped with talking to women.
yeah, well, that would require the women to also be on the games, which sometimes they are. But
Yeah, they need to make a very addicting conversation simulator. People, and these guys can just grind it out until they learn how to just like hold eye contact.
those are called otomes, McMoa, and that does not help with actually interacting with real people.
That's what the Gen Z. That's why that's the Gen Z stare right there.
Well, if there's nowhere
Where
to
are my
interact-
Where are my conversational options? Exit out. I'm lagging.
Gosh. I don't know if you're referencing it specifically, but that's just bringing to mind this one guy who, like, makes fun of the brain rot sort of thing. And, oh gosh, it's kind of terrifying that there are... Like, I haven't seen anybody be like that, but the fact that that's even a possibility of, like, ways that somebody could be in the world, that's kind
My
of
wife
terrifying.
my wife interacts with a lot of Gen Z ladies and other folks who get their nails done because she's like the office manager at a nail salon or whatever. And when I told her about the Gen Z stare meme, she was like, "Yes, 100%. That is a thing. They just look at you, and they don't know how to like volley back the conversational ball." And my hypothesis was that it was like a COVID thing, that like they came of age in COVID, and that got us thinking about like parties. And it wasn't shortly after that Gen Z was like, the big meme was that like Gen Z was surprised that people used to do house parties because they had never like done that in high school, and they're like, what's this like American TV show thing where they act like people just go over to each other's houses all the time. And all the, and that of course led to the cringiest of cringe Gen X memes, where it was like, back in our day, we would have a party every week, and our parents would hide the beer, but we'd find it. That kind of cringe stuff, which is another. If I get too much on Gen X, then I will know it's time for bed. Because I will get going. Don't get me started on Gen X.
Accusing Ron of needing
feel
to
like-
go home because he's drunk.
Yeah.
I feel like Gen X trash. Mine has yet to even be, penetrated. It's like it's just right for just pillaging. Just there's so much there that I don't even know where to begin. Like they've gotten away with it for so long. It's like they're still mad at George W. Bush.
Yeah.
They think Trump is George W. Bush or something.
Well, George
Man,
W.
if
Bush is
only-
okay now. I don't know if you know that. He came out against Trump, so he's okay in our books now.
If only Kurt Cobain
Yeah.
wouldn't have died, everything would have been better.
Yep.
Well, I don't know what happened, but like for a few weeks back, I can't remember if it was like Instagram or YouTube, but like one or the other must have thought that I was like a child, because as I was, dancing with the devil with short form content. It was just like teen, like content, obviously, pointed towards people much younger than me. And I was like enjoying it because I was like getting an inside view on the brain rot of today's youth, and I was like, oh my god, this is what the algorithm's feeding people. This is good. This is horrible. But then on the other app, it must have thought that I was like a Gen X sympathizer or something, because it was probably X, but of course. But every single piece of content was just like a cringy Gen Xer, like I can't even describe it, because I get so like it really triggers my disgust sensitivity. I'll put it that way.
Well, it's like I honestly don't know where to begin. Like, I really don't. I don't have anything to say about Gen X at this point, just because, like, I feel like I haven't got a good avenue into what exactly is wrong with them. But there's so much that once it starts getting opened up, everybody's just gonna have a field day with trolling Gen X forever. You know? But it's like, I don't know, I just think of like Bill Hicks, you know, like in the 90s, like, did you hear about religion? You know, or something like that. Like on David Letterman, you know?
Just leaning hard into the cynicism.
Yeah, just...
And having nothing to replace it with, I think was because the thing that I've seen memed about with them is like, you guys all pushed against the man, but then you forgot that you were supposed to become him at some point, and like, actually take responsibility for the stuff that you were bitching about all the time.
Well, yeah, and it's like, it's funny how there's nothing funnier than like a late middle-aged punk rocker who still thinks he's punk. You know, it's like, there was a while when these old punk rockers were on my YouTube shorts, like, what is punk? Oh man, don't ask me. And it's like, they're still thinking about that. They're like 55, you know? That is terrible. You know, like that's the worst thing.
So,
I do not want to hear that.
We
multiple people.
I met up with Matt Skankenstein for Estuary. I forget if this was the last Friday or if this was yesterday. But he mentioned that he went to a punk festival, and that one of the bands played a song where the lead singer was singing about jerking off in the tour bus, and like, he wrote this song back in like the 1990s and has been singing it now into 2025, and it's like, dude, like, when you're 20, maybe 30, I can see the appeal of something like that, but
17.
Like, what are you doing? Like, what? Like, as an artist, you're allowed to change your sound. You're allowed to say, okay, like, this was from me of a different time. Like, I should probably find something else to sing about to emphasize. And it's like, nope, we're gonna keep singing about jerking off in the tour bus. It's like, okay.
Yeah. So I have intimate experience with this type of person. When I worked at the dive bar after the mega church, this was like every single person that came in. And I did sound for some like pretty big or like quote unquote important punk bands, but they were all so old. And it was like so sad. And the people in the bar were all so old, and it was so sad. It's like just alcoholics, like in their late 40s, looking like they're in their late 60s.
Yeah.
And none of they have horrible relationships with all the people in their life. Like, they're like constantly treat everybody around them poorly, and everybody treats them poorly. And there's this weird like camaraderie. But I won't say, like, I'm not trying to say that that's what all Gen Xers are like, but all those people just so happen to be Gen X. And but in terms of being an old punk rocker, I think that it actually like remains to be seen. You know, like, I think that it's actually possible, but you have to do it like what you're talking about, Af, where it's like, you have to talk about new stuff, and you have to like evolve, like, you have to keep getting better, you know? Like,
you know, I actually have something to say about that. What you just said is, I heard the new album by the band Off, like OFF exclamation point. And it's a band, the lead singer is Keith Morris, who was the original lead singer of Black Flag, like in the mid 70s, and he's in his late 60s now. And that album is one of the best albums I've heard this year. It's like, it's all about like aliens and conspiracies and LSD in California, and the music is great. So,
Well,
I have
there's
to
a
say
similar.
it is possible to still be an old punk rapper.
There's a similar conversation happening in hip hop right now, primarily because of two things basically. One is the artist called Clips, which is Pusha T and Malice, two brothers from Virginia Beach. They're in their 50s, and they just released probably the best hip hop album of the year, called "Let God Sort 'Em Out." And it's a very fascinating story. Pusha T was very close with Kanye. His brother Malice converted to Christianity and stopped rapping for a few years, and he came back rapping, and it was like very Christian rap, and nobody really liked it very much. He had a couple good verses here or there, but everybody was kind of like, yeah, this is kind of lame. But they rejoined each other. They reformed the Clips, their combined project, and they released this album that's like, on the surface, is very similar to their old stuff, which was mostly just about like selling cocaine. And on the surface, this album is about selling cocaine, but basically the whole album, everything has 3 and 4 layers of meaning. And so it's kind of being widely recognized as a real masterpiece of hip hop. And at the same time that's happening, you have Andre 3000, which many people consider to be one of the best rappers to ever do it. And he is kind of on record as saying he doesn't really feel like hip hop is like an old man's game. Like he kind of feels corny. He's like, what am I going to rap about? Like doing laundry and like changing my kids' diapers. And then some people are like, yes. They're like, yes, please rap about that. But then, so yeah, like that's a big conversation. And then actually a Christian rapper, Anthony Mineo, recently released a hip hop, like a rap song, basically talking about Andre 3000, basically giving up on rap. And it's called This Is Not a Andre 3000 Diss Song. And it was like, you know, kind of made waves in the hip hop scene a few weeks back. But yeah, so I think it's a very live question. And I think that's like, to me, that's the disappointing part about Gen X, to kind of take it full circle, is there seems to be just, you know, as a millennial, I kind of look up to them with the same critique that the boomers seem to give down, which is they failed to live up to their potential. You know, it's like, which is kind of like what you were talking about with the, they fought against the man and forgot that they had to be the man. So yeah, all that to say, I hold out great hope for Gen Xers of all sorts, that they can kind of like King Theoden, you know, maybe if we can take back, instead of giving them the sword, we're gonna have to take away their TVs and their social medias. But if we do that, then maybe they will feel the strength of their younger days and take responsibility. And the millennials will not have to save us all. But if I'm being honest, it's kind of looking like the millennials are going to have to save us all.
Well, and
I thought we were counting on Gen Z.
Oh God.
Nope, I've
go
worked
younger
with too
and
many Gen Zers. Yeah, I've worked with too many Gen Zers. I don't trust those dudes. It's going to have to be the millennials that are more competent and conscientious than me.
Well, why don't you become the confident and conscientious millennial?
Well, I will as soon as everybody else can be
well.
as open and agreeable as I am.
Why don't you do it?
It's the world that's the problem, not me.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's fun. It's actually a tender subject because I've researched very much into how to raise my conscientiousness, and you know, it's a big 5 personality trait. It's one of the. You can make a case for like being agreeable or disagreeable. You can make a case for being extroverted or introverted. You can make a case, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's really hard to make a case for not being conscientious.
Yep.
You're just an asshole. And I'm just an asshole, basically.
Well, I don't know, because I think that there's a saying in the army that if you want to find a better way of doing something, give it to an E4 and they'll figure it out. Because there's a certain thing that laziness or not wanting to put as much diligence and effort in is actually a value. Like, you need that in order to, if there is a better way, find that better way. If you believe that we already have the better way and I just need to put in diligent effort, then you're not actually going to make things improved. But maybe that's just cope because I also have issues with conscientiousness.
Well, I remember when I was in high school, I had a job at a meat market, and my boss, for the first time I ever heard, said, "Don't try to work harder, work smarter." And I was like, damn, that scared me. I don't know how to do either.
Yeah, is there a dumber and easier route?
Well, it's more that, like, once you get things ironed out, then you do have to just put in the effort. But you don't necessarily know when things are completely ironed out. Like, just within the video game example, the whole thing with speedrunning is trying to find improvements bit by bit of, like, okay, we know roughly how to do this, we think that this is the fastest way to do this, but is it actually the fastest way to do it, or is there something else that we're missing? So it's acknowledging that the puzzle might not be as solved as it has been made out to be.
Yeah, that's got me thinking. That's got me thinking because usually with stuff like this, you know, there's positive and negatives on both sides. I think most conscientious people do not self-report on it being a difficult thing. You know,
Well,
they don't complain about it.
Yeah, they don't have to
Yeah.
make an effort for it. It's not a forcing thing.
But that's what I mean. It's like, well, I guess that similar is true for extroverts and introverts. Very rarely do extroverts complain about their extroversion. So I guess that's kind of, I guess people complain both about their disagreeability and agreeability. But yeah, I don't, like, as far as I know, there's not very good research, or there's no conclusive research on, like, dependable ways of raising conscientiousness. As I was packing, I found a book that I forgot that I had. It was called Neurotics at Work. It was like a book from the 70s or something. And it's like all about, it's for therapists and counselors, how to, like, deal with, and spiritual directors, I suppose, how to deal with low conscientiousness people or neurotic people, and they're you know, turning them into contributing worker bees.
Yeah.
I've just skimmed it and I don't remember the details of the book, but I remember there being some fairly good stuff, and even just in, like, the categorization of, like things to look out for, and but yeah, I probably should. Well, it sounds like you should too. You know, if the earlier comment about the electrical engineering or whatever was accurate. But see, that's the thing, is, like, for me at least, my conscientiousness would not be a problem at all if I was, like, filthy rich. You know, maybe I would be. Maybe I would be rich if I, you know, had higher conscientiousness. But there's plenty of situations in which, like, my conscientiousness at least wouldn't be a negative, or that, you know, devastating of a negative. But I think that there are probably similar dangers for someone who's high in conscientiousness. Well, I guess the Bible story that comes up is Mary and Martha, Lazarus's sisters. And there's a sense in which Jesus seems to say that the conscientious person who's kind of dithering about, trying to put everything in its place, actually has not chose the better thing. That the better thing is at least being with your guests, is listening to your teacher, is you know, following the words of Christ, participating with the Word of God. You know, like you could extend the story and the metaphor out, but yeah. So that's probably what it is that you can kind of be so earthly minded that you're no heavenly good.
Yep. Well, I think the thing with a lot of the big five traits is that you have to understand how to balance the extremes. You have to understand how to know what set of traits or characteristics to embody when you're trying to invoke a certain persona. Like, if you are being dad, you have to have a level of conscientiousness that isn't necessary when you're doing something like embodying the musician. But you kind of have to know when you can move certain things up and down.
Yeah. There's something about that sounds right, but there's also something that's kind of rubbing me a little bit wrong about it, just in the sense that I don't think that you can. It's not so easy to switch modes. I guess is the easiest way to say what I'm thinking. Is like, it seems more likely to me that there could be a kind of perpetual mental activity or spiritual, emotional activity. A certain stance, a certain like almost like an existential stance, that kind of gives you like affordances, right? That affords you different. I don't want to go so far as to call them personas, you know, because there's something about that seems like improperly splitting the human in some way. It's almost like going too far into like authenticity or profilicity. Whereas like you've got to also there's also an element of it where, to the extent that you care, more and more things fall in line. You know, but that's also going to work itself out very differently for people with different.
Well, and the thing that is specifically the reason why I bring that up is this notion of like, the point of the tarot cards is not to be something that's used for divination. It's actually to try and say, hey, these are the different ways of being that you're going to have to learn to master in order to become fully human. That you need to master the Emperor and the Empress. You need to master the Magician. You need to master the Wheel. You need to master Death. But what that actually means and how that actually works out is...
I think I've pretty much conquered the tower at this point.
Okay. What do you see the tower as?
Disaster, failure, a breaking down. I don't know. I'm not big into tarot. I've listened to Meditations with Tarot once. I don't think I've ever had tarot cards drawn for me, but you know, I've seen them. I'm familiar with them. But yeah, isn't the tower like a bad omen? It's like a bad one, yeah.
Well, it's lightning and storms around the tower. The tower being well, it's not completely crumbled, but it's like potentially on the way.
Yeah, that was the joke. That I've mastered that one.
Yep. But it seems to have endured, at least well enough. Or reformed itself.
There's like I think there's a psalm where the writer of the psalm compares himself to a tower that's like been destroyed. You know, like he compares himself to the walls of Jerusalem or something like that. Or maybe I'm thinking of a prophet. I don't know. You know, Old Testament, a little less There's just so much more stuff happening. So many more characters.
How am I supposed to keep track of everything here?
Yeah. If only somebody would write a guide. If only somebody would write down the types of conversations that have been going on for centuries about said texts and put them and create world religions around them and debate the meanings of those texts and the implications of those texts. If only there's somewhere I could go.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. How do you? I guess you just said you kind of think of it as kind of a these different aspects of life that are calling to be mastered. They're kind of calling out as like opportunities for mastery.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what I think about that. In some ways, I like it. I think there's some truth to it. But I guess what's in the back of my head is like, should we just accept that there are going to be some things that we're just not going to be able to master? Like I don't think I'm stepping out of line by saying like, if it's up to me, barring a miracle of the Holy Spirit and renewing my heart, my mind, my actions, and my habitus, God giving me a new habitus. There's just going to be some things that are just always going to be very, very difficult for me. Like remembering to put my coffee cup away in the morning and not leave it out wherever I've finished drinking it.
Mm-hmm.
Just little stuff like that. And it's not to say that I can't get better at like noticing it later and putting it where it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But that's just a small example where like, to what extent is it helpful to kind of accept that like maybe an ideal of mastery may never be met, and to not let that kind of bar you from maybe getting good at the situation in a way that's not like repetitious, but is instead kind of flexible in its ability to cope with different abstantiations of that deficit. Because that's the thing, is like as soon as mastery is introduced, well then you see how far from the ideal you are.
But does having that acknowledgement make it so that it's more difficult for you to aspire towards that ideal? Because for me at least, it's like, in some cases maybe, especially once you look up and you see how much higher above you the ideal actually is, and then it's like, oh, there's no way I can climb that whole mountain.
Right. Yeah, I think it's a very complex question that you just asked, because there's a lot of different vectors to approach it from. So for instance, in a purely secular framework, I don't have an answer for it. I think you're just kind of left with Nietzsche's Übermensch and like, newsflash, buddy, you ain't it. Like, and then with the kind of traditional Christianity and even like Catholicism and Eastern Orthodoxy and most Protestantism to some extent, there is that kind of idea that we should be striving towards perfection and
apokatastasis.
Yes, eventually, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm more just talking about like picking up your cross and following Christ, right? Like there's this idea of like
following Christ.
Yeah, improvement. Well, that's my problem is like, yeah, all the things that the Lord is impressing upon me to his burden is easy and his yoke is light, and I'm still complaining about it and I still can't do it. But so yeah, there's a vector of like Christian virtue, right, where it's more about improvement and the Holy Spirit changing your heart over time and you becoming conformed to the image of Christ, so that there's this kind of ongoing perfecting, and then with the ultimate hope. That's the thing, is like for Christianity, there's not depending on the denomination, there's not necessarily, the hope is not in human effort. The Catholics would say it's human effort and grace. The Orthodox have their own views on this type of thing, and Protestants are more heavy on the grace. Usually, it's complicated in terms of denomination, but that's not the point. The point is that then there's a whole nother vector with the whole kind of ideal, question. And like Peterson's, you set your eyes to the top of the mountain and you climb, and you might not make it, but you get further than you were before. You clean your room, you do the simple stuff. You must get better. This is what gives your life meaning, is to have this project of improvement, and that's what will make you happy and make you feel fulfilled.
And I would say not just make you feel happy and fulfilled, but like that's what you're supposed to be doing. Like that is the whole point of living life. Which, by the way, I don't know if you're meaning to push me towards the other topic that I was going to talk about and decided not to because I didn't want to interrupt the flow of the conversation. But this is exactly the other thing that I was going to talk about.
Well, I didn't know what you were going to talk about, but the final where I want to stick the landing is why it gets really complicated for me, is that what we talked about earlier with Christ kind of placing himself at the bottom of the hierarchy. Mm-hmm. So the fact that the top of the hierarchy is actually the bottom of the hierarchy, that the head, the leader of all serves all. There's a weird sense in which, you can be of shitty service to someone, but you're still serving them. Like if your desire is for the good of the other and you wish to serve them towards that end, even if you do it poorly, there's a sense in which you still did it 100%.
I would say that there's definitely a possibility.
That's like a radical.
If the service is poor enough, it might be better than if it never happened at all. But that's not very common.
In some sense, right? In some sense, yes, of course. But and there's lots of reasons why the service may be poor. But a genuine, this is why they talk about like a servant's heart or whatever. Like if you're really trying to serve someone and they tell you that you're not doing it well, then you want to change it immediately. Like because the whole desire is to serve the other. But yeah, what were you? Yeah, that complicates things for me because I don't think it's as simple as like you climb up the mountain, right? It's actually it's there's a weird way in which you're like actually like trying to go under the mountain, so yeah, I don't know. What do you make of that? And where were you trying to go with the conversation? I probably have like 15 minutes left.
Okay.
Emmy.
I will try and make this a quick explanation then. The thing that I was going to talk about was that this value of below threshold efforts was the term I was going to use for it. And like the idea of like going from 0 to 1 is infinitely more difficult than going from 1 to 100. And just as kind of an example of like what I'm talking about with that, it took us hundreds of years to figure out how to create airplanes, and then once we created them in 1903, we had machines that were good enough to be used in war by 1914. It's like 10 years later. So once we figure out how to do something, the actual like optimization of that thing does not take nearly as long as the actual figuring out. And the thing that we kind of take for granted because it happens so frequently is that same 0 to 1 happens for every individual human being when they're trying to learn something, when they're trying to first come into something that they have not done before or are not experienced with. And because like there's so many other people before them have managed to cross that threshold, and we have kind of been able to measure like, okay, like this person's crossed this threshold and they're at about this ability, so this person's at about the same ability, we can expect that they'll cross the threshold at about the same point. Like it might be plus or minus a few days or a few hours or like whatever, but we're assuming that like if your IQ is at a certain point that you'll be able to learn algebra, for instance. We know you'll be able to figure out. It might take a little longer, it might take a little more effort, but you'll get it. And one of the, like this is a little bit of a tangent to that, but one of the really powerful dark arts that I'm aware of is concealing the level of effort that something takes. And so if I can make you not see my first 20 attempts, I can make you believe that I'm getting it right on the first try. And then, get out of this one first. And so just like having a degree of thankfulness that there are people who are kind of waking up to that reality, that the sort of curated Instagram profile is not realistic, that there's so many quote-unquote perfect people that have made their presence known in the world that people started to catch on to the fact that, oh, they're not actually perfect. They just have learned how to make themselves appear that way.
Yeah. Well, it's always going to be much easier to be like a successful follower than it is to be a successful leader in some sense. It's the same thing as the airplane invention versus the optimization. The 0 to 1. Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm just echoing exactly what you said. I think it's a great point. There also seems to be a way in which, two things. One, I want to say sometimes there are Michael Jordans, or like LeBron Jameses who they do like just nail it their first time, and that just happens. It just does. But the other thing I wanted to point out was that it's not just 0 to 1, but like these big moments. It's also 0 to 1 for like the small stuff, right? Like it's inertia. There's like they call it cognitive inertia or something like that. I think I've read some of that in the like ADD literature. But there's something about like to start a new task switching, like when you're working on something important or mind consuming, and then your wife comes in and like interrupts you and it pisses you off because you were like, now you have to get back into it. Flow state was interrupted. All of that stuff I think is similar to what you're talking about. And to put it on the like virtue level, I think that's like 100%. It's like, and it may be even worse because what do they say? Like it takes 30 days or something to cement a habit for most people. And so it's like you actually have to go to 0 to 1 like 100 times.
Yep.
And then 1 to 100 is like easy as pie.
Yep.
So yeah, I think you're on the money with that.
Yep. Well, and the reason that I wanted to bring up too, though, was that I think that a lot of times the effort that it takes, because like it is a significant effort just to try and get like not even a full 0 to 1, just to like get from 0 to 0.5 or 0.2 even, and that a lot of times in order to get from 0 to 1, you have to have gotten from 0 to some fraction a bunch of times before, and then finally you cross that threshold. Like nobody makes their first jump from the Matrix, right? So there's this question of like, what should you value the efforts that somebody is making that is that sort of subcritical amount? Like they're not actually being successful, but they have to go through not success enough times that they can actually get to that point. And so I think that it's a lot more valuable than we as a culture tend to give it credit for. It's a little bit better, I think, in sort of like gamer culture, where because it's a thing within games to have to struggle and fail so many times, that you kind of get this grasp of like, oh no, like that's just part of the process, and that it's just so ingrained in the patterns of being and becoming in somebody who plays video games that they recognize it in themselves, and then they can recognize it in others as well, and they can see the value in not getting all the way from 0 to 1. They can see the gradual progress that's being made as somebody like grows and grows and grows until eventually they're able to get over that threshold. But how do you properly value that? How do you properly
Well, I think
if you can't get there, then why? I'm not going to pay you if you can't do the job. I'm not going to pay you if you can only almost do the job.
Right? Yeah. I think in games and in sports, it's a little easier because there's just kind of a very defined goal. And for the fundamentals, there's usually like one right way to do it, right? So I'm thinking of like the way a coach would do it if he was like watching somebody, make a shot or whatever. He might focus in and he would set up a specific drill to target, maybe even a very specific muscle or muscle chain or emotion. Like tucking your elbow in and keeping your forearm at 90 degrees from your upper arm and the ball resting at a perfect spot, like getting so there's like one right way to do it. and it's almost like a biomechanical reality. And so, but then as the player shoots, the coach is watching him, paying attention, and he's basically, you know, telling him how far off the mark he is. You know, closer, further in, further back, higher, closer, you know, there. And then finally, there, you nailed it. That was it. And the ball goes in. And it's like, oh, did you feel how that felt? Now do that again. Do it over again.
Yep.
And so
then from 0 to 1.
it.
Now let's get to 100.
Yep. And so, but yeah, it's that kind of one-on-one attention, I think, is kind of what's required for it. But then also notice how the coach needs to have the knowledge. He needs to be able to say, this is how you do it. And he needs to also be able to see the mistakes that the person is making.
Yep.
And so, like, if I'm watching you play this video game, I can give you no coaching advice. You know, it's like it's just like, stop dying so much or whatever.
Get good, bro. Come on.
Yeah, and so much of society is telling men, in particular, as it pertains to work, just like, get good, or with life. You know, it's like, skill issue, get good.
Yep.
Should
Not
have
actually giving
invested
any
in
good, actionable advice that will help them to improve themselves.
Yeah. Well, it's not even just advice, right? It actually, I think actionable advice isn't even that helpful, because it is for some people who are driven, right? But I think in the places where it matters, which is to say the places where it's most difficult, I can't think of anything besides just kind of that personal struggle of overcoming, of just making it like grit, like basically just grit. But then also the only other thing that I can think that would help is that kind of one-on-one attention of like, hey, this is exactly what you're doing wrong. Here's how to correct that. And I'm going to watch you and follow up and keep you accountable. And when you stray, I'm going to say, hey, you strayed, get back in line. So, but that's like also gets into like managing and leading, all of that cringy kind of, that all of this is fraught with like, you know, worldly wisdom that is just kind of BS and trend. That was the other thing I was going to say with like sports and games, is like, after you've learned the fundamentals, eventually you get to this kind of, well, it's the meta level. You start talking about the meta. What's the meta? You know, and that's that same kind of, it's where the ideal breaks down, right? Because it's more strategy. If the Golden State Warriors are shooting threes and they don't have any big men, well, now the whole rest of the NBA is going to change to defend that, and now it's a completely different landscape. And so if you had the mindset of like the same tools of having the perfect jump shot, and you take those up a level into what does it mean to be like a coach for a whole team, and in an NBA where the game has changed, the style of play has changed, it requires a lot more flexibility. It requires a lot more, agility in terms of, problem solving and all of that stuff. Like, I think the closest video games get to this kind of thing is like when new metas are discovered. Like that's, to me, is the that's also like why it's complicated, because even when somebody does give you one-on-one advice, well, are we talking about, am I having a problem with the fundamentals, or is this a meta issue? Is this is this kind of or am I on a bad team? Bad coach, bad team, bad system, bad ideal.
Am I using that as an excuse for why I'm not improving, or why my failures are happening? Yeah. The one thing I will say though, and you kind of have to play games a bit to really get a solid handle on this, but I think that the general point will come across okay.
I just played sports games. I haven't played video games in probably like a year or so. But I was just a sports game guy. So I'm kind of a gamer, but not,
okay. So meta does exist, and it is important, especially at like higher levels of play. But the thing that does not get talked about as much and does not get emphasized as much is how much more skill matters than whether you're playing the particular meta strategy. And that if you have like the way that I would try and explain it is, do you know what ELO is? Are you familiar at all with that concept?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what you can do with a game like chess is you can basically say how much ELO a material difference is worth, and so like a pawn is worth like 100 ELO and it varies a little bit. Like there's some nuance to what I'm talking about that doesn't quite match up, but is a general principle it'll work out. But yeah, if you have like a pawn advantage or a pawn disadvantage, that's like 100 ELO. And so what happens is you can have a material advantage or disadvantage against somebody, and then just subtract however much material on the board to make it a fair game. And the same thing exists with meta in a lot of games. Is a meta will provide a certain level of material advantage, and that material advantage might be insurmountable, but very rarely is that actually the case. It's much more often the case that the skill required, the form required to be good, is actually way more impactful than, or like with chess, for instance, like the highest rated players are at like 3,000 ELO. So you could basically give them just a king and a queen versus really bad players, and they would still be able to beat them.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a similar to me. What you're kind of getting to is like a problem of like the quantitative versus the qualitative.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's similar to like a golf handicap.
Yep.
Right.
It's exactly the same.
Yeah, and so I think what I'm trying to point to alongside of that is something like how you approach the game. It's like if you let's just take golf for instance. Mm-hmm. It works the same as chess, but like you're probably better off with the ELO you have, but having like a right mindset and remaining calm and not being intimidated by your opponent, but also not letting your guard down, all of those things, like having the right mindset. That would be better. Having a low ELO with the right mindset would probably be more advantageous than having a super high ELO on tilt.
Yes.
And so to me, that's like the locus of control. That's where we can make the shift from kind of thinking quantitatively in some sense, or like systematically, wanting to have the right answer for every problem. And we can start thinking more qualitatively and, being the type of person who can handle different challenges, being the type of player who, like I'm in basketball, like even if I'm not, my torso isn't perfectly vertical, even if I've got a defender in my face, I'm still going to make the shot, even though my form isn't perfect. Mm-hmm. And so that's where my mind goes with you mentioning skill. And sometimes, I don't really like ELO ratings, even though I obviously understand their utility. Mm-hmm. I think people think that it means more than it actually means. Basically for the reasons I just said, which is like, of course, Magnus Carlsen is never going to lose a game of chess to me, unless he's having the worst day of his life. Well, and I had practiced for a month. Like there's something to that.
So, a point that I would make as a counterpoint, I think that tilt control is actually included in ELO rating in a weird way. Like it's something that's it's something that's trying to encapsulate everything about what it means to play a game, about what it means to be skilled at playing a game, and part of that is actually tilt control.
Yeah, well, in games like chess and with golf, to even have a handicap or an ELO means that you've played a lot. Yes. And so that's where that's another way in which the kind of qualitative spills into the quantitative, because actually I had a mentor and a boss who he was really interested in he was like, they say quality time versus quantity time. Well, I'll tell you what, you'll have a lot more quality time if you have more quantity time. And so he was like, he was trying to do a little dialectic twist on that of like, there's something to be said that like quantity has a quality all its own.
Yes.
I suppose. But with that, I think I'm going to call it and go night-night now.
That sounds good.
But another great Saturday night stream, man. I love these things.
Appreciate that. I enjoy having you on and enjoy. I don't know. There's something special about TLC, and I know that's like navel gazy, but like I don't get to have these kinds of conversations with many other people, and it's very gratifying to be able to have that opportunity. I don't know.
Yeah, it's fun as hell to nerd out. It really is.
Yeah, man.
All right, have a good one. Bye bye.
You too. Have a good night, Mamo. Alright, guys. Well, I think we'll save the B-Boss for the next stream. We'll do a little choir practice, and then we'll call it a night. So we shall rejoice together. Get my posture right, make sure I'm using my diaphragm. And rejoice. Rejoice, God's ears are stitches. Oh, rejoice. His eyes are big X's. Oh, rejoice. His arms are burning witches. Oh, rejoice. His hands perform hexes. Rejoice despite the fact this world will hurt you. And rejoice despite the fact this world will kill you. And rejoice despite the fact this world will tear you to shreds. Rejoice because you're trying your best. And rejoice, the bed you sleep in is burning. Oh, rejoice, the sky's fucking falling. Oh, rejoice, the world we know is turning. Oh, rejoice, your father's been calling. Rejoice, although this world will devastate you. And rejoice, although this world will penetrate you. And rejoice, although you will not survive. Rejoice, you'll never make it out alive. And rejoice. Your hair, it smells like burning hair. Oh, rejoice. Your nails all got chewed off. Oh, rejoice. And holy fuck, you're bleeding there. Oh, rejoice. You burned your whole beard off. Rejoice, although this world will... No. Rejoice despite the fact this world will hurt you. And rejoice despite the fact this world will kill you. And rejoice despite the fact this world will tear you to shreds. Rejoice because you're trying your best. Thanks, Embody, for tuning in. Sorry I wasn't able to get to quite as much of the chat as I wanted to. There's good conversation happening. I hope you all understand that. And appreciate everybody who tuned in for tuning in. Good night, then. Be safe, friends. Don't you dare go hollow.